Welcome to this episode of the Xavier Files. As a part of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap, where we are chatting with the voice of Rogue in both X-Men the Animated Series and X-Men 97, Lenore Zann.
Well, howdy there, sugar. How y'all doing?
We are doing fantastic and have been looking forward to this for such a long time. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome.
So we have a lot that we're going to go through. Rod's going to hit the normal podcast stuff at the beginning, and then we will get into this.
I'm Rod. Some real quick housekeeping. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode we can find. This podcast started out with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, building up to the release of X-Men 97. And we're going to be chatting about Lenore's character and their biggest moments from X-Men the Animated Series Season 1 of X-Men 97. So there might be spoilers for that. But if you haven't watched it yet, shame on you. It's the number one Marvel thing ever. It's fantastic. If you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, go watch the episodes, and come back.
And then don't forget you're following us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast services. Now, let's get into it. Lenore, obviously, we are an X-Men focused podcast, and we're going to be talking about your role as Rogue. But you've done so much between stage, TV, film, etc., all before X-Men the Animated Series was even like a blip on your radar. Would you mind sharing with us like a role or two that you were most proud of in that early part of your career?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, some people just think that my career started with X-Men the Animated Series, but as you said, I'd already had a burgeoning career in film and television and theater. Before I did X-Men, one of the roles that I played was Marilyn Monroe. I was chosen to play Marilyn Monroe when I was 19, starring in a rock opera on the life of Marilyn Monroe called Hey Marilyn. And I played her from the age of 16 to 36. So from Norma Jean Baker all through her glamour years to the end when she was, really going downhill with booze and drugs, and in the end died of an overdose of pills and alcohol. And so that role really hit home for me, and I gave it everything I've got. And the newspapers across Canada at the time said, a star is born. So that kick-started my career. And one of the plays that I did that I got to do in Toronto and Chicago and New York, I worked on it for 3 years, was a play called Unidentified Human Remains and the True Nature of Love. And I played the female lead in that show. And that got me into the States. That got me my green card, got me to be able to work right across the country. And it was a wonderful opportunity for me to then just start working in the States. I went back to Canada at one point shortly after it, and that's when I booked X-Men. Mm-hmm. So I did do the first season of X-Men from Toronto, but then after that I was doing it in other places as well.
Got it. So, I went through the memoir as we were preparing for this. I have my copy here, which you love, like you signed for me on the inside,
Yes.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, this was the first time I had ever read a memoir. Like, I read lots of stuff. I read way too many comics probably, but I did not read a memoir. So, like, one thing that stood out to me is you put so much of your life on paper, and like you hit some pretty heavy topics in there. What's that like for you as a writer, sharing that kind of experience with the world?
It was pretty scary to begin with, just wondering how people would react to it. But I felt like I have enough of a fan base that people really want to see me succeed. Mm-hmm. And I felt it's important to show the times when you've been despairing, when you haven't been in a hit show, when you've been wondering, why am I here? What's my purpose for being on this earth at all? And I think a lot of young people, I wanted them to relate to the fact that so many young people are searching for who they are and what their purpose is, and I wanted to connect with that. Also, anyone who's had a sexual assault or had dealings with alcohol and drugs, I wanted to talk about my issues and how I overcame them and the different challenges that I faced.
You describe it in the book, or in your memoir. There's lots of ups in your life, and then lots of points where you go as far as saying that you would hit rock bottom. And this was all before X-Men 97 even came out that you started writing this, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
I think, I did start. That's right. I started writing it the year before it came out.
One thing that Rod and I joke about living in LA is it's like it is such a small town, and you start meeting people and you just very quickly become connected with people who you're going to cross over with a lot in your life. And for us, it was even like Ron Wasserman, and because of him, we became friends with the Newton brothers and everything like that. In the memoir, you talk about like all these people who would be later a part of the MCU, and then even members of the X-Men the Animated Series cast. Like you talk about connections with Cal Dodd, and then Don Franks, who is the voice of Sabretooth. Like, as this is all happening, are there like those full circle moments of, I knew that person was going to be special, and now I get to see it play out and be there with them along for the ride?
Yeah, definitely. And also like Giancarlo Esposito, right? The fact that I was hanging out with him in New York, and he came to see my play. I went to see his play. Clark Gregg, Sam
Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. You know, all those guys, it's amazing to watch their careers now and know them and just feel really glad for their successes.
Yeah, I think one of the pieces that stood out to me is the amount of people who start on the stage, because when you get out to LA and you're talking about the movie industry and TV industry, you forget how many people have come off of like stage plays and stuff like that. And so many of you have this amazing pedigree from it.
Absolutely. And they say the best voice actors are theater actors.
Very cool. And I don't know if this plays specifically into your character of Rogue, but one of the things that you kept touching on was your mantra that your dad shared with you of anything is possible. How has that impacted your, not just your life, but your career in particular too?
Well, whenever I was at a loss and thinking, oh my God, I'm at the end of my rope here, what's going to happen? I did think back to my dad saying, anything is possible. Don't give up. Always, think positively and something good will happen. And that has definitely helped my whole life. And I hope that I can give that message to lots of other people as well, because I know there are a lot of people who are suffering right now.
And I think that very much comes through, like, going through it. I read the majority of the memoir in a single day because it was hard to put down. So
thank you. And and it was your first one, your first memoir.
One ever reading a memoir. Yep.
Great, thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Of course. Now, before we start diving into some of the X-Men specific stuff, we did want to touch on after this episode comes out, because it comes out on Monday of this week, you're going to be doing an appearance at the Grove in Los Angeles.
Yes, I'm going to be doing an appearance at the Grove on May 29th. It's a Thursday. And from 7 till 9, I'm going to be reading from my book and signing books for people. And this will be my first one. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm very grateful to Barnes & Noble at the Grove for hosting it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be there as well, so
Great.
Excited to see you for it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm doing one there, and then I'm going to do one in Miami, July 29th as well.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that. And at this point, we're trying to set one up in Toronto as well, some in between those two.
I can't speak specifically for Miami or Toronto, but the Grove especially, if you in LA, but if you're thinking about visiting, it would be a good reason to. That specific Barnes & Noble is pretty, like, I don't know if historic's the right word, but like a lot of appearances there. I got to see
Great.
Linda Perry and her wife Sarah Gilbert perform there. Rachel Platt and when she had her first big hit song, she got to do her album release there and stuff. So
Really?
Lenore's in great company with a lot of other
Very
people
cool.
I forgot to, so it's a great place to visit. You see in a lot of TikToks and stuff with influencers running around.
Right. And I have Tiffy Starchild is going to be my my moderator. So she's pretty all over on TikTok as well. She's really good.
Awesome. Well, I've been to a handful of panels that you've been on, so I've had the pleasure of hearing this before. would you mind sharing the story about your audition for Rogue that almost didn't happen for those who haven't had the opportunity to hear you at a panel or a convention yet?
Sure. I had actually just finished doing a play for about 9 months in Chicago and then 9 months in New York off Broadway, called Unidentified Human Remains and the True Nature of Love, that one. So I just finished doing it. I'd come back to Toronto, and I was getting back into movies and TV. I'd done like a Law and Order and stuff like this. And my agent said, "Oh, Lenore, there's this animated series, and I think you'd be really great for it. They're looking for a woman with a deep, husky, sexy voice who can do a Southern accent." And I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And then I kind of went, I blew it off. I just didn't bother auditioning for it. Because I kind of considered myself a serious actress, movies, television, theater. And at the time I was thinking, cartoons are just kind of cartoons. And so then I get a call from her maybe a month later, "Lenore, they are still looking for the actress to play this particular part in this animated series, and they haven't found her yet because I know it's you. So get your ass in gear and get down to the studio and audition." So I was like, okay, it's the callbacks. All right, I'll go in. And then I saw a drawing of Rogue in the waiting room, and I went, "Oh, I like her. She's got sass. She's got attitude." She had her hand on her hip, and she was like flipping her hair or something. And so I just took a look at the character, and I walked in, put the headphones on, and said, "My daddy liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant." And, I heard this big scream on the other end of the headphones, and it was Larry Houston in Los Angeles, I found out later.
Yeah.
Saying, "Don't let her leave the building. That's the one. That's Rogue. That's the voice we've been waiting for." And that's how I got the part of Rogue.
That's awesome. And like you said, you almost didn't go for it. Yeah.
And I never did get to meet Larry or the Leewalds, the writers, for 25 years. We finally got to meet 5 years ago at a 25-year reunion that was held for the X-Men in New Braunfels, Texas, a small little Texas town. Yeah, at a Comic-Con. And that's where we got to meet them. We met the Leewalds, and we met Larry. And we all got along like a house on fire. And we went out for dinner at the end of that Comic-Con. And we said, wouldn't it be nice if somebody was to buy the rights to the show and reboot it and bring us all back again? Right. And we said, let's have a drink to that. And we all put up our drinks and we said, okay, manifest it to the universe. And here we are 5 years later, and we're all back doing the show.
So
amazing.
Awesome. What I'm hearing is we have you all to thank for bringing it into the universe.
And I thank the universe for bringing it to me, to us. Yeah, pretty amazing.
So once you start going through the scripts and you're reading the character, what are the thoughts going through your head? Because compared to a lot of the characters of the 90s and especially the 80s, Rogue was never the damsel in distress. She was never just the side love interest. She was strong and powerful. Like, what was that like for you, especially coming off of the experience of being a more, like you said, serious actor?
That's what I liked about the character. I never really did play ingenues. I kind of skipped that part in my life. I went straight into playing Marilyn Monroe at the age of 19. So ingenues never really interested me that much. And so Rogue interested me because she was strong, she was fierce, she would put her own life on the line for her friends and for others. And she made sure to make people feel like it's okay to be different. And to learn to accept yourself, because she has to learn how to embrace and accept herself as she is, warts and all. Even though, at one point during The Cure, that episode in the first animated series, she tries to get rid of her powers because she wants to be normal, quote unquote, like everybody else, so that she can touch people, so she can have a family, she can be loved. But then in the middle of that episode, she starts to realize, oh, wait a minute. I am my powers and the good they can do, and I reckon I can live with that. There ain't no cure for who you are. And I love that. I love that message.
When you guys were doing those episodes, especially in the early season, was that still in person or with each other, or were you guys already separated at that point?
Yeah, we were doing it in one studio room for the first year, into the second year. And then a lot of us were doing films and television and stuff that weren't in Toronto. And so then we would be going into other studios as well. But by and large, we were doing it in Toronto. So they'd set up times when we could all come and be there, and then we would be doing it together.
Got it. The reason I ask about that scene in particular, Cal's delivery of who would basically being like, who would want to lose their powers, and you see the animation of Rogue like looking disappointed, like
With
I almost
tears.
feel like seeing that hearing that in person, you're like, oh wow, Cal really doesn't like me when he says that out loud, you know?
Right. And you sort of see a tear in her eye too, right? Like she Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people can relate to Rogue as well. And a lot of people in the LGBTQ community say that they can relate to Rogue because they always felt like they were different and they couldn't really show it and they couldn't touch somebody that they loved. They had to keep it all inside. And so a lot of people can relate to Rogue that way as well.
Especially in the 90s with like, if you weren't in a big city, you were probably like, I was like, we were the only Asian family in a small town in Indiana. So I imagine like, queer folk out in different small towns and stuff, probably the only ones, or the only ones that they know of because it's not safe. To be out there, But
yeah, exactly.
I just kind of realizing like Rogue has this interesting, like you mentioned, dynamic of like her personality is like giving and protecting others, but it's almost like in a balance of what her powers force her to be, like not being able to touch and stuff. Is really interesting.
Yeah, and she hates bullies.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and we were saying like she's not the damsel in distress, so she's not being fridged. She is the fridge. Yeah, right. She gets knocked around so much in the show and leaves dents.
She does. Yeah, I love scenes like when she drops one of the guys in the river and she goes, "Don't get a moonburn," I mean,
that's another thing.
Or heads up when she throws the sentinel's head. My
younger brother and I, that was one of the few things that because we're 5 years apart, kind of bonded us watching that in the Saturday mornings. And even though, I was a Storm kid growing up, my brother, Wolverine, of course.
Okay.
But our favorite lines were always Rogue, and I'll never forget. So my favorite line was like, "You look more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs." And my brother, I think he's, in his late 30s now, still cracks up whenever he hears like, "Ain't that enough?"
Right. Oh, that's good. Has he been watching X-Men 97 too?
Oh yeah, we when it ran like in real time, like I would watch at midnight. He has a family, so he can't exactly do the midnight thing, but he would text me like the second he watched it, and like we would just like write back and forth. It was like we were kids all over again.
Oh, that's so great. That's one of the things I'm so glad that we're able to do for people, to do that and to have kids that from the 90s who are also now adults. They're introducing their kids to the show and then they're watching it together. And that's so nice. It makes me feel really good.
That's the thing. I have a niece who's now 11, but she was 10 when 97 was running. And my brother, so you guys tricked us with the first two episodes. So my brother and I.
How do we trick you?
My brother was like, "Oh, I can't wait for Grace to watch his show," and like it was like, "Oh, the team's winning, they're fun, like Cyclops is cool again." Like,
right.
And then we got to that third episode, and Peter's my brother. He was like, "I can't wait to show this to Grace." I'm like, "Okay, Peter, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying you should watch it first,
right,
and then watch it with her because you might have like a little bit of a talk,
right."
And then by the time it got to episode 5, like, Peter, just watch this the next day with Grace.
Right.
Because you need to be prepared to what you're.
And did she like it?
I think so. Because that Christmas I ended up getting her like the whole like play sets of 97 action figures and the Blackbird, or you call the X-Jet, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Stuff, so, yeah.
Oh, what a great uncle.
Oh, well,
what a great uncle.
She's a great niece because she gave me and my brother like easy cheat codes. We just got her to the stuff we want to get. That's
so nice. When my nephew, my oldest nephew, I have two, one's 25 and one's 21, but when the older one was like 4 or 5, I was doing a show called Rescue Heroes.
Okay.
I played Wendy Waters in that, who was a female firefighter. And there were dolls, the action figures. And in fact, they came out with them where you pressed a button and our voices came out,
wow.
Nice.
which is really cool. And there was like a fire station and stuff like that. So every time there was a birthday or Christmas or whatever, I'd bring him another toy home. And that we had that together, which was really nice. He still remembers that.
Kind of spinning off of like Rod's stories and stuff like that. What was it like, because you've been on both sides of the show, of being in an era where you weren't getting instant feedback, like, an episode was going live in 97. I'm sure Instagram notifications the next morning were insane, compared to the animated series where I think I had read that there was fan mail coming into Fox and you guys didn't even know it was happening at that point.
Yeah.
What's that difference like as a performer?
Well, back in the day, in the 90s, there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no Wikipedia for us to look stuff up, and there were not even emails, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we were basically acting in a void. We would do the performance for each other. We'd crack each other up, too, half the time, and then we'd all go out and have a few drinks together after the session, and that'd be it. We wouldn't see each other till the next session, And we never did really know how our show was hitting people. Maybe at one point later on in the 90s, I got some bits of fan mail that were sent directly to my agent in Toronto. And some of those were from like folks that were in the Army or Navy who were stationed in like the Gulf, and they said that they were watching our show VHS on the ships and that it was like their safe place and they felt really good watching it, and they just loved my character because she would fight for her friends and stand up for people. So that was kind of cool. But for the most part, we had no idea how successful the show was until about 5 years ago when we went to our first Comic-Con. and that's when it started. That's when we started going, what are these people here for us? Like what? And that's when we started to realize, and then people started telling us their stories about what the X-Men had meant to them as kids, and saying you were my childhood. You're the voice in my head when I read the comics. You've been living in my head for 30 years. I'm like, well, wow, I've been living rent free in your head for 30 years. That's amazing. So it's been great.
Not even gonna lie, the next question on my sheet was when was the first time somebody said they read Rogan your voice? That was literally the next thing I was gonna, because that's true for me too. Like between you and Cal and George, like when I read an X-Men comic every week, that is still what is in my head when I am reading those pages. So
well, I should be paying you because I've been living rent free there in your head. So
it's so wild because I even when me and JC first met Ron, it was for a YouTube video back in 2017 or 18,
17,
that. And even Ron seemed a little like taken aback. He's like, "Why do you want to talk to me?" And we're like, "Oh, you're probably like one of the top 10 songs of the 90s for us."
Right.
Like, the only reason it didn't chart is because I don't think Saban like never released it on the physical format. Or something.
Okay.
There's a weird like caveat with that. It's like otherwise, like that was probably like one of the number one pieces of music any 90s kid ever listened to. Plus the show, and we had that conversation. He was like, "Yeah, I didn't even really know it was doing well until like 10 years later."
Right.
And I guess in the same time frame, you and the Leewalds and stuff found out. I was talking to Ron, and we were like, "Yeah, no, this show is iconic. Like, this is why kids like me were so upset with the X-Men movies because they didn't do it right. Because to us, the animated series was the right one.
Right.
And we just wanted to see that yellow spandex,
Yeah, and poor Ron. Like, I think I only just met him recently. I think it was at our final party. We had a final party when the show had aired all its episodes.
Yes,
and
we were there.
Yeah. And that's where I got to meet him. And he said, like he gets no money for that, right? Like he gets no residuals. It's like, oh gosh.
That and Power Rangers and a bunch of other music for those two songs.
Right, that's right. He did Power Rangers too.
We've had long talks about that because he actually I do something not nearly as successful as Ron, but something similar now where it's the work for hire thing where you sell your rights to the exec, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But Ron told me he was like, I never begrudge it because he's still working to this day. You know, he's like, the phone hasn't
Right.
stopped ringing since '92.
That's good. That's so good.
That's why I'm kind of counting. Like, hopefully, I can have like a fraction of the
Yes.
career Ron's had
Yeah.
in the coming year.
Yeah.
So
I know.
moving to X-Men 97,
Mm-hmm.
obviously when you were chatting with the Leewalds and Larry and everybody like that, when was the first official conversation, if you could share any stories about that, of you being approached to come back for the new reboot or continuation, not reboot?
Yeah, well, I left acting for 12 years and went into politics, which, you know, if you read the book.
Yep.
So from 2009 till 2021, I was an elected official. And I ended my political career at that time working with Prime Minister Trudeau as a member of Parliament up in Ottawa. And so we had the pandemic happened during that time. And everybody was under lockdown. Everybody got sent back home and everyone was under lockdown. And then in my writing, in my constituency, we had this terrible mass shooting also happened. And then there was an election called. Oh, and my niece, my beautiful, sweet young niece, Maya, died of cancer. Yeah. And then there was an election call and then I lost my seat. And so I was kind of left going, where am I? Who am I? What am I going to do with the rest of my life now? I was really depressed and really, really grieving the loss of my niece. And then suddenly X-Men came calling.
Wow.
And I had this email from the friend who had set up the 25-year anniversary reunion in New Braunfels. And he said, "Hey, Lenore, I know somebody who's a casting person," and they said that Disney is looking for you. And I was like, yeah, sure. Tell me another one, right? I was in Truro, Nova Scotia, this tiny little town with 13,000 people, you know. And I was like, yeah, if there's anything to this, give them my phone number and get them to call me if it's real. Right. And then I got a call, and it was Meredith Lane, who said she was the casting director and voice director for working with Disney, and they wanted to audition me for a role in a new show. I said, "Oh, okay, sure, I'd be very happy to." So she said, "Well, I'm going to send you the script, and then you just lay down the lines and send them back to us by email." And this was all, I got to say, this was all new, too. So, like, since 12 years before when I left the business to go into politics, you know, recording something on your phone and then turning it into an MP3 and attaching it to an email and sending it off to Hollywood, you know, I'm like, yeah, so I did all that. But when I got the script, I saw the lines and I went, oh, this is Rogue. These are lines I've already recorded years ago. I recognize this.
Yeah.
So I just went, okay, I know. So they're looking for Rogue. Okay, I'll just do Rogue. So I recorded it, sent it off to her. And then I got another call from her about a month later saying, "Hey, Lenore, they love the read. They really want to meet you. The producers would love to take a Zoom meeting with you." And so that's when I met Beau DeMayo and Charlie Feldman. And we hit it off. And they said, we're just such huge fans of you and of the show. Would you please come back and play Rogue for us again? And that's how it all happened the second time.
So when you're getting that offer, do you have any idea how massive a role that Rogue is going to have in that first season, or that came after?
That came after. I mean, we never know what's going to happen until we get the script. It's kind of like the first time. It was the same the first time. We never knew where the show was going until we got the script. And as I always like to say, when I get the scripts for the old show and for the new show, I'm on the edge of my seat. I love them. They're so exciting, and I can see it all, and I can hear everybody in my head too, because I'm so comfortable and familiar with them all. And so the scripts are amazing. They've been amazing. They're continuing to be amazing. And so it's just been a gift. As an actor who loves to get my teeth into like real nitty gritty stuff and, you know, layered parts of a performance, it's been a true gift.
Yeah, I mean, this from the 6 seasons you've done of the show between the original and the new one, like this is the most Rogue-centric season by far. Is there a moment as you're even like reading these in real time where like it can't get bigger than this, and then it still keeps happening? It felt like this entire season.
Yeah, it was amazing. And you know, I always say as an actor, use the blues. Like if something has happened in your life that is traumatic or hurtful or something that's wonderful, use it. Like so for instance, the fact that I had lost my sweet young niece at 17 to cancer, and then I get this script, episode 5, where I lose my love, the love of my life. And I read the script, I cried, and I thought at the end of it, I said, well, I don't have to do my emotional homework for this one. I've already done it. I'm still doing it. And so when I went into the studio and recorded it, I was able to put all of the emotion that I was already feeling into the performance. And I felt like if I can do it and be authentic to show people what grief really sounds like, it should hopefully reverberate with others and make them feel it too, and have perhaps a cathartic experience where they can cry and release whatever tensions, fears, sadnesses through my performance, and hopefully heal from that. And from what I've heard and saw on the internet and people have been telling me, it seems like that in fact did occur. So I feel like that was using the blues for something good.
Your last line in episode 5 like took everyone's breath away. Like I remember, like, was it 12:30 in the morning?
12:40. It was 12:45 because it was a longer episode. Okay. And I think I had literally started the episode a minute before he did, and I was just waiting by my phone because I knew there was going to be a late night text as soon as he got to it.
I'm just like sitting there with my cat in the dark, like, like we all lost Gambit together. And then Rogue's line, we're like, when we have to wait a week, like, and it didn't even matter. We had to wait a week because he's gone. You know, like.
And actually, I think you had to wait 2 more weeks because there was another episode in between.
The storm episode,
right?
Yeah,
which was also intense and beautiful.
Don't get me started.
And then we didn't get back to Rogue and Gambit again until episode 7.
Yeah.
And then Rogue goes rogue, and I loved every minute of it.
I was gonna say, when you said like when you pull from your real life experiences and stuff, like how relatable Rogue has always been, but especially in this season, like when the drop happens. Like all of us have thought about it, right? maybe we don't go to, but Rogue gave us that like satisfaction of like, okay, maybe I can't ever do this in my real life,
right?
But we got to feel it, you know, a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Same, sugar.
I will share since we started doing this show, I've had 2 moments that have broken me. The first one was when we got to chat with the Leewalds, and when we chatted with them, we actually did the rewatch of Graduation Day, and hearing Julia in particular talk about those goodbyes that Professor X gave to the team, and then Julia's voice starts cracking, and then Eric's voice starts cracking, and then my voice starts cracking in it, and the other one is those final moments. And
thank you. Totally
honest, I could not rewatch the episode. It took me a year between the last time I watched it and then I rewatched it in preparation for today. And it actually hit me harder. Like, wow. It hit harder a year later for me.
So, wow. Had something happened in your life in that year, or it's just...
I think the world being what it is right now may be a part of it, but I think it was also like, it was such a pure storytelling moment. And then I don't know if you had heard about this. Emmett, the director of the episode, they did a panel at QCon here in LA a few weeks ago. And I had asked what was their proudest moment they directed, and they particularly pointed out that moment. So
that's well, it's just so beautifully done, the whole thing. Like I always say, it's a team effort with the art and the direction and the writing, the music, the acting. You know, I'm really proud of that episode too. And I mean, that's the one we got nominated for an Emmy for, you know, and then we won Critics' Choice, which is great. and we won an Astra Award as well, and we won a GLAAD Award too. So yeah, that it definitely has legs, and I think that it's important for people to feel their feelings, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world. And, and that was on my mind too, even at the time, just the fact that there was so much suffering. Like there were people dying. Even during the pandemic, if you didn't have someone yourself that died, you knew someone who did, or you'd been watching the bodies pile up, and the body counts, and it was overwhelming. So I felt like a lot of people, I think, are grieving deeply, deep underneath the surface, and they didn't even really know it. So I hoped that through that performance, it might help break them open a little bit so they could feel it and release it.
Definitely. Do you feel like that is the biggest moment you've had with the character, the one that you point to for Rogue?
For sure. Yeah. For sure. I mean, in the first iteration of it, A Rogue's Tale, getting to hear Rogue's origin story for the first time was great. Loved that one. And The Cure, I loved that one as well. But in this show, obviously, episodes 5 and episode 7, even, his name was Gambit. Remember it. That was so fulfilling as well,
Has anybody given you the card that has his name is Gambit on it? Because that came out with those card? the finest cards that I know you've done some signings for and stuff like that.
You know what? I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Okay, I will make sure we get one for you.
Wow. Yeah. No, I don't have that one yet. No.
Yeah. There's an insert set because they have all the character cards, but they have some that are called the greatest hits, and they have some of those moments in there. So
wow. Okay. Great. Yeah.
I do want to ask, since you are the first of the cast who has been on both shows that has joined us, we've had AJ, we've had Matthew, we've had Isaac, we've had JP. What was it like coming from the original series to now being a mix of the original crew along with these new kids, I
love it. Yeah. Those guys are like my brothers, and when we get together at Comic-Cons to see each other, it's so nice. It feels right. And Ray as well, Ray Chase. Got to see him just recently as well in Chicago. I mean, it's just so nice. They're such fun and loving guys, and the women too. Jennifer and I don't get to see each other so much in real life, but we sometimes message each other and send each other texts and stuff. And Holly's a sweetheart as well. So it's great. I love the old cast and I love the new cast. And I just think it's that Disney and Marvel have done an amazing job of putting this show together. Absolutely. And kudos to everybody involved.
We would never ask you for anything that's a spoiler because we don't want anybody ever getting in trouble for being on our show. But I would love to know, as season 1 was wrapping up, was there anything you wanted to see happen for Rogue in the future after those emotional final episodes?
Yeah, I wanted to see something with Mystique in the future because I love some of the stuff from the original show where you find out her backstory with Mystique and Destiny. Destiny, I don't think had come into it in the original one either, but I wanted to see some more of that and get some more of that stuff between mother and daughter because those are universal themes as well that I'd like to explore, and I think that there are a lot of people out there who would love to see that.
Yeah, because we watched X-Men Evolution following the end of X-Men the Animated Series, and Destiny is a part of that, and especially as a weekly comic buyer, I love that dynamic, especially with your step sibling and everything like that. So I would love to see that as well.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Nightcrawler is back and that we have those brother-sister things. Adrian Huff plays Nightcrawler, and we've been going to a lot of things together. He lives in Vancouver, and he comes back and forth, and it's just so great to be back together again and having this fun. Chris Potter, who is the original Gambit, we get to hang out together as well at different Comic-Cons, so I'm getting to work with the new Gambit and the original Gambit, and he's, of course, Cable in the new show, so that's a lot of fun, too.
And you had done an
Storm.
appearance.
I love Storm.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You had done an appearance here in LA with Chris, I want to say. It was at Golden Apple, right?
Yes. When we were signing or we were opening the Tops cards. Yeah, exactly.
Rod, before I move on to Revival, because we definitely want to touch upon that, do you have any other 97 related questions for Lenore?
No, I think we've kind of covered everything. I was just going to say, like, you and Allison, like, are the voices of the show for me, you know? Like, because especially with because what I loved about your guys' dynamic was you seemed silly in the dialogue because she's the Southern gal, whatever, but you always had like the correct things to say. Storm always said the most unhinged things in the most serious tone. Like I don't know. Like, when we were rewatching this a couple of years ago, the original show, I remember mentioning like, like Storm would just say like we're all losers together or something, like, you know. But then like Rogue would point out like like that's kind of messed up. Like,
right, I know. And Allison's such a sweetheart. Like we've done television together too back in the day. So it's always great to hang out with her. And I loved seeing Rogue and Storm together. There was less of that in X-Men 97. It was more Jean and Storm. But I love their relationship, and the fact that you can have a white Southern girl and a black kick-ass character and they're best friends, I think it's great, and it says a lot.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So on June 12th, you are going to be a part of the show Revival, which coincidentally, one of your co-stars is a former coworker of mine, Phil Brooks, who is CM Punk in WWE.
Oh, really? Okay.
So would love to hear what you can share about your role as it's Jeannie Gorski, correct? I'm not saying the name wrong. Yeah, okay,
correct.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, as you know, it's based on the comic book series called Revival, which has come out with a compendium just recently, and the compendium is about this thick. And Jeannie is a character in the comics. She's the dispatch officer at the local sheriff's station, which is sort of where the meat and potatoes of the show takes place. It all revolves around this sheriff's station. But it's one day in a sleepy little Wisconsin town when the dead suddenly come back to life. And it's like, and they want to take their place back in society again, where they left off, as if nothing has happened. So it's a mystery. There's also a murder at the heart of it that they're trying to figure out. And I have a feeling it's going to be a big hit, because I'm telling you, I've seen some of the rushes. I've seen a sizzle reel, and the trailer looks amazing.
It does.
You know, so it's going to be on Sci-Fi Peacock a week later after the June 12th. But I have a feeling people are going to really love it.
I was watching the trailer as we were prepping for this, and it looks fantastic. So I'm excited to see it go. Yeah.
I love it.
And JC told me right before this, like, go watch this trailer. And I didn't know what to expect because I'm not familiar with the graphic novel or the comics.
Right.
And I was like, this is insane. Like, it looks really well done. Like, it doesn't look like it looks more than like a TV show. And
I know.
What I did love though too is like this is another kind of series or property for you where it seems like they're going to be dealing with some persecution or prejudice, because like I like that they had like segregated the revived is what they called them. It's like how did you make it sound like a slur, man? Like and we don't know what the context of that is. Maybe in the show there's more nuance and stuff, we haven't seen it, but like it's interesting that like when there's different groups of people in the world, that is kind of like a weird like negative human nature thing. So you're in that world again.
There's also a sort of beatific zealot, a beatific sort of religious zealot who's in there, and he is something.
Oh, I think he's towards
Stephen Ogg is his
towards
name.
the end of the trailer, right?
Yeah, he's really good.
If people don't recognize Steven's name, he has been both Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5, as well as he was the problematic robot in Westworld, is the best way I could describe him.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, the acting is all fantastic. And the leading actors are just great, too. So, I think you're going to enjoy it.
Before we get to our final question, one thing we ask any of the voice actors to do would be, can you give us the name of the show in the voice of Rogue?
Well, sugar, You look about as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. But you're listening to Cyclops is Waiting for Me, sugar.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is fantastic.
I gave you a 2-for-1.
Yeah,
a twofer.
It's awesome. We love anything when we get to talk to the people who made this amazing show.
I feel like we're a family. You know, it's this X-Men family, and we're all in there together. And when I meet people at Comic-Cons who are partners and who both love X-Men, they're so happy.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, you know, maybe somebody should start a dating site for X-Men fans, because people who love X-Men think similarly, right?
Yeah.
And they hate bullies, and they're all about, you know, we're all in this together, and it's okay to be different, and like, let's love one another. So, you know, that says a lot right there.
Well, one final question for you.
Sure.
And this is the one that we get deep with it.
Okay.
If somebody was to get introduced to X-Men the Animated Series or X-Men 97 today for the first time, and your portrayal of Rogue is the only thing they know about the character, they don't know the comics, they don't know the movies, anything else, what do you want the main takeaway of Rogue to be for that person?
I want Rogue to be like a nice, warm hug where they feel like they are embraced by a loving persona, and they are accepted and appreciated for who they are.
That's
awesome.
Fantastic. I don't think we could ask for a better ending than that.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
Lenore, obviously we're going to put links to all your social media in the description when this goes live. But if you just want to remind people, anything else you want them to know, where to get in touch with you, you know, where's best to comment to get responses, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, just Instagram at Lenore Zann, LENOREZANN, Twitter/X at Zann Lenore, and I'm also on Facebook, so you can follow me there as well.
And,
Awesome.
And you have music out. You're a singer. You're on Spotify and stuff.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
on Spotify too. I've got another album that I've been recording. I haven't released it yet. Just I got so busy with the book and the show. Like the show just took off, and I had planned on releasing an album shortly after it, but man, it just took up all my time.
Yeah.
And then writing the book and getting that out. So at some point, I've got another
Awesome.
album. So I'll be I'll be releasing that at some point
You're
too.
just busy being on the #1 show of the number one franchise.
You know, who knew? The universe was listening.
Is this what's crazy? It's like you were separated from us '90s kids for 20 years, because any one of
Right.
us would have told you in that 20-year gap.
I know. We had no idea. But now we do, and we are really grateful.
Well, Lenore, again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you
you.
to the listeners for joining us. If you have any thoughts, comments, make sure you drop them into the YouTube upload or the official Instagram post about this show. And if you like what we heard, rate us on a podcast app, but I don't even want to do that kind of stuff right now. Just in awe of thanking you for your time today. So thank
You're
you so much.
so kind. Thank you.